Hello and welcome back to the Drive to Thrive show, the show all about being yourself, being your best, and truly thriving in life, whatever that means to you. In today's episode, we're covering the all important topic of learning to embrace setbacks and failure. Because in life, we're going to encounter setbacks, and at some point, we're going to encounter failure. And we want to make sure that we can confidently handle this and keep moving forward, right? Well, that's exactly what we're going to be learning to do in today's episode, so without any further ado, let's get into it. Learning to embrace setbacks and failure. And first things first, what does that even mean? Well, to me personally, learning to embrace setbacks and failure means that in the face of setbacks and failure, we're able to separate who we are from the results that we create, so that we can view our actions and our results objectively. To see failure and setbacks as stepping stones, lessons, and opportunities to glean valuable insights, lessons, and experience that we can apply to help us to move forward, unfazed by those previous results. And yes, okay, sometimes failure does suck, and that's simply because we're so emotionally invested in creating that result. We're so emotionally invested in getting the success that we want, and thus, when we don't get it, we feel that it sucks, we feel let down. And it's okay to acknowledge that, but let's not ruminate on it. Let's not exaggerate it and make it worse. Let's not get stuck there, and let's not create any self-imposed limitations that are completely unnecessary. Instead, let's just go, hey, I failed, that sucks, and now let's let it go so that we can view things objectively and move forward the most effectively. So, when it comes to being our best, achieving our goals, and thriving in life, why is it important that we learn to embrace setbacks and failure? Well, in the pursuit of our goals and the pursuit of growth, at some point we're going to encounter setbacks, and at some point we're going to encounter failure. And whether these setbacks and failures have a positive, neutral, or negative effect on us isn't just up to chance, it's up to us. And given the choice, we would want failure to be a positive experience that can help us to grow and move forward, right? Well, we have that choice, and that's why it's important that we learn how to embrace setbacks and failure so that we can utilize them to help us with our goals and growth. Next is that to not embrace setbacks and failure is to resist them, is to try and push them away, deny them, or pretend they're not there, or try and avoid them at all costs. And of course, what we resist will persist. And not only that, if we're resisting failure and setbacks in our minds, we're creating resistance within ourselves. We're creating fear, stress, tension, things that are going to waste physical, mental, and emotional energy, make it more difficult for us to think clearly, logically, creatively, rationally. Make it difficult for us to apply our full potential and thus to get the results that we want. And so, by embracing setbacks and failure, we can let go of that resistance, go with the flow, and keep moving forwards. Next is that fear of failure can stop us in many different ways. Two of the most powerful ones are that if we think failure is a bad thing, if we think failure is a negative thing, if we have these unresourceful associations to failure, then it becomes something we fear, it becomes something we want to avoid. And if we fear and want to avoid failure, then that can stop us from taking action in the very first place. Because if we think there's a chance we might fail, then we might not take action because we want to avoid whatever negative consequences we've associated to that failure. Another way that it can make it more difficult for us is that the fear of failure can limit us. Because if we fear failing and we think we're going to fail or that there's a very slim chance that we might succeed, then quite often people don't go at things 100%. They don't give it their all. They give it some form of half attempt where they only give 50, 60, or 70% to whatever it is they're doing because they think they're going to fail. And so, subconsciously, psychologically, if they don't give it their all and then they fail, they have that excuse in the back of their mind knowing, oh, it's okay, I didn't quite give it my all, because they think if they give it their all and they fail, it'll mean something awful about themselves. And so instead of giving something their very best, they don't give it their all. They just give it some of what they've got because they think they're going to fail anyway, or they fear what it would mean if they were to give it their all and still not manage to succeed. Another good reason why it's important that we learn to embrace setbacks and failure is that failure holds the keys to our success. Because if we didn't succeed, it means that something was missing. There's either a part of our strategy that isn't working effectively or needs to be added in. There's a skill we need to refine and hone. There's extra effort we need to put in, lessons we need to learn, things we need to do. But these are all things we can only find out through failure. Because when we fail, we can see what didn't go well, what needs to be added in, what was missing, what needs to be learned, what extra effort needs to be put in. And thus, through that failure, through these lessons, we then learn how to go on and succeed. Another reason is that failure allows us to hone our skills, to master our craft, and to optimize our efforts so that we can grow into the person who can succeed. Because if you think about it, if we just succeeded at everything first time, we're not going to learn a huge amount from it. We're not going to get to test our skills. We're not going to get to really grow and master our craft. But when we fail, we're forced to think, what was it went well? What was it didn't go well? And from here, we then get to learn lessons which we go and apply in our next attempt. And then in the next attempt, and the next attempt, and the next attempt, we're getting marginally and marginally better until our skills, our craft, and our efforts are at the standard to get us the results that we want. And so it's through failure, it's through this repetition of failing, learning, and applying that we truly grow, hone our skills, and master our craft until we get the results that we want. Up next, failure helps to humble us and keep our egos in check. If we were just to go from success to success to success, it's easy to get carried away with our own brilliance. It's easy to think that we know it all, and it's at that point that we can get complacent and allow things to slip. But in the face of failure, it reminds us that there's always more that we can learn. There's always ways that we can improve, and life is a journey of constant evolution and growth. And so, by going through failure, being humbled by it, and keeping our egos in check, we can keep a beginner's mindset where we're consistently learning, setting aside what we know to find out what else can I learn to help me grow, improve, and do things even more effectively. And last but by no means least, the more that we can choose to embrace setbacks and failure with objective open arms, then the more consistently we can courageously and confidently take action, free from fear and free to give it our very best again and again and again. Safe in the knowledge that we will either succeed and get the results that we want, or that we'll learn a super valuable lesson that will help us to succeed in the near future. And that is so empowering. Because when we choose to see failure as an opportunity to learn and grow, then every action we go to take, every piece of effort we go to put in, and every step we go to take forward is now a win-win situation. Because we either succeed by getting what we want or learn a valuable lesson that will help us too. And I don't know about you, but for me, learning valuable lessons that are going to help me to succeed are a massive win. Wouldn't you say? Just before we dive into exactly how we can go about embracing setbacks and failure, I want to share a few things with you quickly to help you to change the way you think about setbacks and failure. If you think about it, if we get on a train at the beginning of the line and we're going all the way to the stop at the end of the line, that is our destination, then every single stop that we stop at along the tracks between where we get on and where we want to end up, every single one of those stops is technically a failure, because every single time we stop along the track, it's not the end destination we want to be at, but it's a necessary stop along the way to success. And so, if you think about that metaphor of a train stopping at different stops along the line before it gets to its end destination, failure is simply a temporary stop along the line towards your success. Here's another for you. I very much enjoy climbing mountains and hiking, doing trail running. I absolutely love it. And let's just say that for me to climb up to the top of a Munro, which is a hill above 3,000 feet here in Scotland, let's say it takes me 8,000 steps until I get to the top and get to touch that cairn and get my big cheesy photo. Now, if it takes 8,000 steps before I can touch that cairn, then technically the 7,999 steps up until that last one when I make contact with the cairn, every last one of them was a failure. But every last one of them was necessary in order for me to get to be able to take that final step. Because without the 7,999 steps before it, I wouldn't be in a position to take that final step to success. And so I don't sit and share all this with you as someone who is brilliant at everything and succeeds at everything first time. Of course not. I've had many failures in my life. I've had many royal fuck ups in my life. And so it's from these things that we gain wisdom, that we learn, that we grow, and that we improve. In fact, let me share a quick personal story with you. About 8 years ago, when I was still going through my coaching certification, as part of our coursework, there were some optional modules that we were to choose two of to go through and complete. And one of the ones that I chose was to do my very first public speaking event. Now, the event was online, but it was going to be broadcast out to absolutely everybody in the coaching company's network, which was potentially thousands of people. Now, at the time, I was super excited about this because I loved listening to speakers like Les Brown and Tony Robbins, and I just absolutely loved the power of motivational speakers. And so I thought, great, this is going to be easy. Deliver a 45-minute speaking event. I have got this absolutely nailed. And so I wrote down some of the things that I wanted to cover. I got myself all G'd up about 5-10 minutes before it was time to start. I went for a quick walk around the block to get some fresh air and help ground myself. And then I went into this thing, not quite cocky or arrogant, but confident that I was going to do really well at it. And I had all my material out and ready. I got my headset on, good to go. 3, 2, 1, live. And as it went live and I could see people logging on, I didn't know performance anxiety was a thing. And oh my God, my heart rate went through the fucking roof. And if you've ever been that nervous or that anxious, as soon as you start to enter a fear frame of mind and you start to activate the sympathetic nervous system, go into that fight or flight mode, all of a sudden your ability to think logically, rationally, creatively begins to diminish. And of course, being nervous, being afraid, I was talking really fast and I was going through my material and I wasn't really coming up for air and I wasn't asking questions, I wasn't engaging the audience. And before I knew it, 17 minutes in, I had gone through all of my content. What I thought was going to be 45 minutes worth of content, I had shot out in 17 minutes and then stood there with my cheeks bright red with what felt like beads of sweat coming down my forehead because I was so embarrassed. I had like an extra 20 odd minutes missing from the end of my presentation. And so I came off that call, I got some wonderful feedback. The people that attended were very kind with what they said about it, etc. And the reason I share that with you is if I hadn't have failed so hard there, if I hadn't totally bombed and crashed and burned, if I hadn't have got that afraid, I wouldn't be able to deliver things as confidently as I do today, to sit here and record this podcast for you, to deliver multiple live workshops and webinars to hundreds of people every week, to go into Fortune 500 companies and deliver trainings and webinars. All of that came from that initial failure, from seeing, okay, there's a learning curve here. There's things I need to master, things I need to improve, things I need to get better at. Things like knowing how much content is actually going to take up 45 minutes. Being able to manage my mindset and handle that performance anxiety to show up calmly and confidently. to speak slowly, clearly, to engage people by asking them questions. All these are things that I couldn't have learned if I hadn't failed back then. And so, failure is a hugely useful tool to help us to move forward and succeed. And so, let's talk about exactly how we can do that. When it comes to embracing setbacks and failure, the very first step is to reframe failure in our minds. Because more often than not, we don't actually fear failure itself. What we fear is how it is we're going to feel as a result of failing. Because we go out and we fail and we might say to ourselves, you're an idiot, you're a loser, you're a failure, you're not good enough, and all these kinds of things make us feel shitty. And so it's not actually failure which we fear feeling shitty as a result of failing. Now, what is it determines how we'll feel? It's the meaning that we attach to failure. If we say that failing means we're not good enough, failure means we're an idiot, failure means that we are a failure, or anything like that, then it's that meaning that we attach to failure that determines how we feel as a result of failing. And so, this is something that isn't left up to chance. This is something that we have the power to choose and change. We can decide what we want failure to mean and thus how we will feel as a result. And if we can choose how we want to feel, then surely we want to choose resourceful, empowering emotions that are going to allow us to move forward in the best way possible, right? Well, I invite you just now to have a quick pause and think, what would you like to feel about failure? Go ahead, take a quick pause and have a think about that just now. Got some emotions? Fantastic. So let's say, for example, that if we fail, we want to feel calm, composed, and confident. Now, what we want to think is, in order for us to feel calm, composed, and confident, or whatever emotions you chose, what meaning do we need to give to failure that will allow us to feel that way? So, for example, if I want to feel calm, composed, and confident, I want failure to mean that I have a great opportunity to learn and grow. Because now, when I think about it, if I go and take action on a certain thing and it looks like I might fail, then that's okay. Because if I fail, it's a great opportunity to learn and grow. And thus, if I do fail, that's the meaning I'll attach to it there and then in the moment. I can brush it off, view it objectively, take the lessons from it, and move on. And so, have a think. What would you like to feel about failure? And what do you need to make failure mean so that you can feel that way? And go about choosing new thoughts and new beliefs about failure that inspire and empower you to feel the way you want to feel so you can take the actions you want to take. The second step is in our general outlook. And so every single time you experience a setback or a failure, instead of going, oh no, this sucks, this is terrible, this is unfair, this is the worst thing ever, or whatever it is, anytime you experience a setback or failure, I want you to ask yourself this: how can I use this to make myself better? And use this question as our general outlook, because by asking ourselves this question about every setback and every failure, then we're solidifying in our minds that setbacks and failures are opportunities for us to grow and improve. And when we do that consistently, our general outlook, our beliefs, our perceptions will begin to shift. Step number 3 is to learn from our setbacks and failure. And how can we go about doing that? With the power of questions. And funnily enough, I've got some for you. First things first, in the face of any setback and failure, ask yourself what went well, and then begin to take stock of and acknowledge what went well. Then ask yourself what didn't go well, and objectively, kindly begin to assess what didn't go well in your efforts or actions that led to that failure. Then ask, how can I grow and improve from this? And just write down any ideas and insights that pop up in your mind about how you can grow and improve from this experience. Then ask yourself, What specific lessons can I learn that can help me to succeed in the future? And go about drawing out the golden nuggets, threads, insights, ideas, and lessons that are going to help you to grow and improve the next time that you go to take action. And then, last but by no means least, ask yourself, how and when am I going to apply these lessons? And identify how you can go about implementing these lessons and when you're going to do it, and make the commitment to go and take action again. Because the only way to truly fail at anything in life is to give up. But if you're still going, learning, and growing, then you're still in the game and you still get a chance to reach that success. So please stay on the field, stay in the game, and keep going. Because success isn't linear. It goes from left to right, from left to right, back on itself, in a squiggle, round and round, and then up eventually to success. Achieving the results that we want in life for anything meaningful and worthwhile is just a series of going from failure to lesson, from failure to lesson, from failure to lesson, all the way until we reach the success that we want. And please don't just take my word for it. Let me share two very inspiring quotes, one from Thomas Edison, the other from Winston Churchill. The first one is, I have not failed, I have successfully found 10,000 ways that it won't work. And that was Thomas Edison talking about his 10,000 attempts to create the light bulb and failing at all of them. But he didn't see those attempts as failures, he seen those as lessons as to what doesn't work, thus what he needs to change to make it work the next time. And he repeated that 10,000 times until he successfully created the light bulb. And the next, success isn't final, failure isn't fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. And I think that that is so powerful because once we succeed, it's not the end. We need to keep going to that next goal, to that next piece of growth, or even just putting in the energy and effort to sustain and maintain the success we've created. And when we fail, very rarely does it kill us. We might fear that it will, we might imagine that the consequences are that bad, but how often have you feared that something bad would happen and it doesn't? More times than it actually does, right? And so failure isn't fatal. What counts is that we have the courage to pick ourselves up, to dust ourselves off, to learn the lessons from that failure, and to continue to move forwards. And this brings today's episode nicely to a close, where we've learned all about how we can embrace setbacks and failure. First, we learned that it means to be able to separate who we are from the results that we create, to view our actions and results objectively so that we can learn and grow from them and apply those lessons and growth to help us to move forward unaffected by those past failed results. Next, we learned that it's important to embrace setbacks and failure because at some point we're going to face them. And thus, by taking charge of our mindsets, we can make sure that setbacks and failure are positive experiences, that they're empowering for us and that they become resources that help us to succeed, as opposed to leaving it up to chance and them becoming limitations. We learned that failure can be useful because it holds the keys to our success. It has the lessons and the insights that are going to help us to succeed. It allows us to hone our skills, master our craft, and optimize our efforts. And also that the more consistently we can embrace setbacks and failure, the more consistently we can confidently and courageously take action, safe in the knowledge that we're either going to win by getting the result that we want or win by learning a lesson that will help us to get there. Then I shared some stories and metaphors about how failure on a train track is simply all the stops that lead to that final destination of success. That every step I take on the way up a mountain is technically a failure, but it's still a necessary step for me to get to that final successful one. Then we talked about how we can actually go about embracing setbacks and failure. Firstly, by reframing failure in our minds, to choose a thought, a belief, a meaning about failure that allows us to feel some positive, resourceful emotions that are going to allow us to learn from it and move forward in the most effective way possible. Next is to take the general outlook of any time we face a setback or failure, simply ask ourselves, how can I use this to grow and become even better? And then last but by no means least, by using specific questions to help us to glean the insights and lessons from our failures. What went well? What didn't go well? How can I grow and improve from this? What specific lessons can I learn to help me succeed in the future? And how and when am I going to apply these lessons? And so, all that's left for you to do is to take this new empowering meaning about failure that you've created and put it somewhere where you can easily see it and access it. Whether that's a post it beside your computer, on the background of your phone, in the inside cover of your journal, wherever is going to be most appropriate to see it easily. And then go and consistently, confidently, and courageously take action towards your goals, safe in the knowledge that no matter what, you're either going to win by getting the results that you want or win by learning a valuable lesson that will help you to get them. Until next time, take action, please be kind to others, and I'll catch you real soon. Peace.